It sure has been a while since I've talked about my favorite limbless aubergine, and this is as good a time as any to do it. Rayman just turned 30 years old on September 1st, and his fans came together to celebrate his birthday in spectacular fashion, showing him more love and respect than Ubisoft has for the past decade. I knew some fan games were in the works already, but I didn't realize their quantity, nor their quality. Here I thought Rayman was essentially dead, but no, there are like about a dozen fan games in the making, and most of them are looking surprisingly well made. The majority of these fan games aren't out yet, and those that are playable aren't finalized. Well, maybe Rayman 3 Havoc Reignited is, since the creator only planned to recreate the first level of Hoodlum Havoc. But that isn't a full game, and maybe someone else will finish the job in the future. Before I delve deeper into that masterpiece, I would like to go over some of the other exciting reveals that were shown during Rayman Alive. I'm not particularly interested in the old 2D Rayman games. I haven't even played the original from 1995, nor its fan reimagining from a few years back. But I must admit that Rayman 3 Re-Advanced was a good opener to the showcase. The updated graphics look very nice, certain minigames are now rendered in 3D, and there's even a multiplayer mode. While I'm not sure if I'll play it, I admire how well the fans are doing to give this obscure title new life, and I'm sure it'll be a quality remaster that will satiate the thirst of certain Rayman fans. A 2D game I will undoubtedly play is Rayman Origins 2, which looks to have the same fun and fast-paced gameplay of Origins and Legends. Unlike those games, this one actually has a voice acting where the characters speak coherently, and the comedy seems pretty funny so far. You can play as Lee the Fairy, who looks great in 2D, and so do the Hoodlums, which is an enemy addition I highly approve of. Even Rayman creator Michel Ancel shows up at some point, so I'm intrigued to see how they'll handle that. Some fans are also making Rayman Legends content, 2 DLCs being shown during the showcase. I'm not as excited about these, since they're only DLCs and don't seem to come with the same personality as Origins 2, but I do love Legends, so I might have to play them regardless. Another 2D Rayman game I'm interested in is Rayman Into the Polyworld. There was no footage shown for this, but I'm liking the idea of Rayman and friends being sucked into a polygonal dimension. I think it will be quite a stylish game, which the unique character sketches already allude to. I look forward to learning more about this fan game in the future. Fortunately, 2D games weren't the only type to be shown during the event. In fact, there were about as many 3D games showcased, which is the type of Rayman I'm really craving for. That said, I'm pretty sure 3D fan games are tougher to get right than 2D ones, and my notion is reinforced by the likes of Rayman Monsters of the Depths, which appears to lack polish and a stable performance. That might be because it's in early stages of development though, so I'll have to wait and see if it turns out well. For now, I'm more sold on Rayman Revenge of the Dark, which doesn't look perfect either, but is clearly a lot further in its development. The trailer promises an immersive experience with lovely music, good lighting, and smooth character animations. There's a cutscene that hints at a dramatic narrative, which Rayman hasn't really delved into since The Great Escape about 25 years ago. No, Captain Laserhawk doesn't count, even if edgy Rayman carries that show on his back. Anyways, I'm all for going back to that darkness, as long as the franchise's trademark wackiness remains. Judging by the colorful pencil level, that's surely the case, so my only concern with this fan game is that the worlds seem a bit empty and aimless, but hopefully that won't end up being the case. At least one of the locations is populated with characters to give that place life, and I hope to see more of that, along with more collectibles and challenges. Apparently someone is making a Rayman DLC in Minecraft, which is pretty interesting. The trailer gave off a very dark vibe, with Glowbox in particular looking really cursed, and the story seems to be quite dramatic. It looks well made, so I might try it out. I'll admit, for as much as I enjoy Minecraft, every time I come back to it, I get burnt out immediately, but maybe this Rayman DLC will be able to prolong my next return. Perhaps the most exciting fan game to be shown during the event is Rayman Raving Rabbids Reburrowed. Hold on, don't I hate the rabbits? I do, since they transformed the hypothetical Rayman 4 into a generic minigame collection that left Rayman to the wayside, still to this day. But this fan game aims to take the idea of the rabbits in the original Rayman 4 direction, which makes me incredibly hyped. In fact, this fan game builds on an official Rayman 4 prototype before it had changed direction, and for some reason I had no idea this prototype leaked 3 years ago. Maybe I should actually try it out. A game in which your goal is to fight the rabbits should be a tremendous payoff to my pent-up resentment against them. Not only that, but the gameplay just looks really smooth and fun. The amount of variety on offer is staggering. you can pilot different vehicles that are all creatively designed. And you can even ride certain creatures, such as this creepy ass worm and this normal ass bird. It looks like the levels will be big sandboxes to explore, so it's nice to have a bunch of traversal options. This game has an old look to it, which makes sense given that the Rayman 4 prototype was made during the transition from the 6th generation of consoles to the 7th gen. I quite like this classic look, and the developers are doing a great job of working within its confines, offering good lighting and animations. Rayman Raving Rabbids Reburrowed just might be the Rayman 4 I've been dreaming of for all these years, and the craziest part is that it's not even the only fan game to give me that vibe. Now I'm getting to the Rayman fan games that are actually playable at the moment, the first of which being Rayman Mystery of Polycus. I was freaking out when I saw this during the event. The fact that it takes so many elements from Rayman 3 especially makes it so exciting to me. I'm also impressed by the amount of characters you can play as, including but not limited to Razov, Lee, and Glowbox. I obviously had to try its playtest out, and holy hell, this is a long one. In fact, it's the full game, just in an unfinished state. What's that? Sick Robopirate released the final version a week after Rayman Alive? What is this guy on? I'm pretty sure this is the first full 3D Rayman fan game, which is quite the achievement, and let me tell you, it ain't short. I've spent more than 6 hours with it and I'm still not done. Granted, that's because I've been trying to get as many collectibles as possible, and they tend to be spread out over maps that are honestly too big for my liking. Mystery of Polycus definitely isn't the most polished, also having somewhat janky animations for fighting enemies and collecting gems, and being lit inconsistently with bloom that can go overboard, but it's very well made for the most part. Besides, I don't expect a fan game to be the most polished, and the fact that it's as good as it is makes it highly impressive. I love that it combines so many elements from the Rayman series, particularly 2 and 3. The main villains from the original trilogy are all working together to take vengeance on Rayman, which makes for a cool plot that resembles what I have had in mind for a Ratchet & Clank fan game story. One might argue that there's too much fan service, and you probably don't need 2 grappling hooks for example, but I love that this fan game unapologetically wears its identity on its sleeve. Besides, there is actually a point in having 2 grappling hooks, because while you can always use the grappling fist, the lockjaw is a temporary power-up, so they can be combined in clever ways where you need to act quickly. I love that you get to use the combat fatigues from Rayman 3, and there are even some new ones that are pretty fun to use. I suppose some of them are fairly redundant since they function similarly to the heavy metal fist, which is already included, but they nevertheless add more elements to enrich the gameplay further. Some power-ups that do shake things up more include the spring jump, giving Rayman an extra jump and the look of Dark Rayman, the endless flight, which is a permanent version of the throttle copter that gives Rayman a cool pink attire, and the Clogger pistols, which don't change Rayman's outfit, but give him better range to deal with those pesky rabbits. The rabbits level was honestly one of the best, and it felt good shooting those bastards in the face as both Rayman and Razov. Most of the playable characters control pretty well, though I must admit that the Glowbox level was a slog to get through due to how slow he is. My favorite might be the Hood Bomb. His plum juice attack is so broken. As you can see, there's a lot that can be said about Rayman Mystery of Polycus, and I barely scratched the surface, so go and play it yourself if you want to find out more about it. Just know that I really dig it and look forward to playing more of it. The last couple of fan games I have to talk about are the remakes, both of which got playable demos. Let's start with Rayman 2 Redreamed. Some of you may already know about my hot take, but for those of you who don't,
I did not care for
Rayman 2.
What?
Sacrilege, I know. I have tried to enjoy it, playing both The Great Escape and Revolution, but neither version convinced me. I suppose it's a great accomplishment then that I had fun with this demo. I mean, the combat is still pretty lackluster, but I guess that's how it will always be. It controls quite well otherwise, and the visuals look nice. Well, other than the disturbingly wide field of view. I later discovered that you can adjust it in the controls menu, but I thought it would be in the graphics settings, and I didn't know about that until I had already played the whole demo. This really shouldn't be the default FOV anyway, it's too far away from Rayman. Also, for as pleasant as this fan remake looks, it doesn't quite capture the unique atmosphere of Rayman 2, which is an aspect I actually really like about that game. The Mr. Leoniesti made a remake of Rayman 2's intro cutscene that captures the presentation a lot better, so I hope New Dawn Games will take some notes from that. I would probably also prefer Rayman to not talk to himself, at least not so often, as that's become a tired modern trend that tends to diminish visual storytelling. Perhaps these are aspects that can be improved until the full game is remade, so I look forward to its progress. Maybe it seems disingenuous of me, who's fairly indifferent towards Rayman 2, to come with so many criticisms towards this remake, but I do want to enjoy the game in some form, and if this Rayman 2 remake becomes the best it can be, then it could very well become a favorite of mine. I at least like the 2D cutscenes, and the inside of the Robo-Pirate factory looks stunning, reminiscent of the toxic Crash Bandicoot levels. So far, Rayman 2 Redreamed is a very impressive fan-made remake of Rayman 2 that doesn't quite capture the tone of the original, but the updated controls and graphics does make me enjoy it more. Regardless of how it turns out, I'll probably play the whole thing when it's released. Last but certainly not least, there's Rayman 3 Havoc Reignited. Now this is a remake that perfectly captures the vibe of its original counterpart, and I've always loved Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc. This remake only covers the Great Fairy Council, but that was honestly enough to satisfy me, especially considering that's my favorite level of the game. It just has the perfect atmosphere, which this remake retains and even improves upon. I seriously can't believe how gorgeous this fangame is. Like, this is what you'd expect to see from a AAA studio, but this was made by one guy. One guy! Sure, he got a little help from others, and it did take him 2 whole years to do it, but that time and effort clearly shows. The lighting is sublime and the general attention to detail is astounding. The updated character models look really nice for the most part, especially Rayman and Glowbox, and I used to think there was only one bigger fairy in that council room, so good on Marek for educating my dumbass by differentiating them. There's a setting for going back to the original fairy look, and the fact that it acts like a paper cutout is hysterical. The animations aren't perfect, but they're very impressive for a fan game, and the lip sync actually lines up with the English voice acting fairly accurately for once.
Ooh, here we go. It says here the Glowbox took off with your hands.
Knowing what a scaredy cat he is, he's probably hiding someplace.
Maybe that's not the case for the other languages, but the fact that other languages are included shows so much respect from the creator. Despite some changes here and there, this remake is completely faithful to Rayman 3, even retaining all the iconic sounds from the original, whether it be the satisfying sound effects, the quirky voice acting, or the immaculate soundtrack.
My bladder.
It also controls like a charm, better than Rayman 3 ever did, and you can actually move while in first person mode now. This remake recaptures the vibe of Rayman 3 so well that I was actually fooled into thinking that Marek didn't change much about it. However, going back to the original Rayman 3, or rather the HD version, it clearly looks way less detailed, Rayman definitely moves slower, and I somehow forgot about the shitty camera. To be fair, it had been 3 years since the last time I played it, but I've played that game so many times that I shouldn't be fooled so easily, so hats off to you, Marek. Given that this remake only recreates the first level, it might not be much content, but to be fair, Marek could have just stopped at the heart of the world and called it a day, so the fact that he included the funky board section is highly commendable, and I'd say it's the perfect way to end this demo. The teensy highway looks absolutely stunning. It might be the prettiest part of the remake, which is saying something. Although Havoc Reignited isn't the full Rayman 3 experience, this remake contains plenty of fun additional details and Easter eggs that enhance the replay value. There are more gems to collect than before, along with Matuvus and Tribels, some of which are found in level transitions. That's right, you can actually move seamlessly between levels now instead of being stopped by a loading screen, which is a good way to modernize the game, and I like that your segment score pops up in a small window next to you. I'm pretty sure Sam the Water Snake only appears in Rayman 2, but he can be seen out of bounds here, and he's pretty creepy looking. This biblical fairy mural definitely wasn't here before either, and if it was, you couldn't see it. But it's very cool, and it's so funny that you can see the fairy that was thrown by Andre, unconscious on the ground. I wonder if Marek remembered to design her under... Welp, walked right into that one. FBI, open up! There's also text up here which bamboozles you into killing yourself. I discovered this feature before seeing that message, so I wasn't fooled by it. But I have accidentally pressed the kill switch at very inconvenient points, so thanks for that, Marek. Perhaps my favorite added detail is this snail that will chase you relentlessly if you look at it. It's based on the concept of an immortal snail that will kill you if you come into contact with it, which might not sound so bad considering snails move incredibly slowly, but it would still be a pretty terrifying curse to have, especially when you don't know where it is.
Something bad is gonna happen, I know it.
That's what makes this gimmick so scary, as it will just show up all of a sudden near you with those evil red eyes, often clipping through a wall or the ground. I was trying to find one of the Matuvus in the piggy bank room, and that damn snail completely derailed my objective. It turns out that Matuvu is hidden inside a piggy bank crater I had already sealed up, so I couldn't have found it even if I wanted to. Thanks again, Marek. It was incredibly funny to speedrun the level up until the heart of the world in 5 minutes and wait another 5 minutes for the snail to finally catch up. By the way, you can actually jump into the heart of the world now, and it instantly kills you, so that's good to know. That room also has a couple of teensies charging up for an attack like in Rayman Origins and Legends, which is a goated reference. The funniest thing in that room, however, is
See you in Rayman 4! Yeah, right.
oh Murphy, our love-hate relationship grows ever stronger. Who am I kidding? I've never hated you. Keep feeding me outdated pop culture references.
Hey, if I were you, I'd call it quits and head straight for the Spider-Man 2 audition.
There's plenty of references to be found in the varied skin selection as well, with cool variations of Rayman and the Robo-Pirates, and you can even look like Batilla the Fairy. Some of these skins are unlocked by doing certain challenges, and let me tell you, they are insanely difficult, almost to the point of impossibility. I don't think I have the patience to complete the unfair absolute havoc mode, even though it gives you checkpoints. There aren't checkpoints in the speedrun mode, but I feel like it's more doable. I love the concept, as you don't just have to get through the level quickly, you also need to score enough points to prevent the timer from running out. This is no easy task, however, and at the moment, I can't quickly collect the Matuvus if my life depended on it. Even though I haven't managed to get 100% on all the level segments, I have gotten enough points to beat the par score, which gave me this funny Raymurf skin. I brought the skin with me to the secret level where I eventually unlocked the skin based on Rayman's design in Mystery of the Dark that I talked about earlier, which is a neat inclusion. It wasn't easy to find this hidden level, but when I did during the Funky Board section, I became filled with so much joy. It brought me back to the old days where I would discover something awesome in a game without being spoiled about it on the internet, which is rare nowadays. That Funky Board path was quite challenging, but very satisfying to master, and so is the other one that leads to a cat photo. I love the creepy and mysterious atmosphere of the secret level, and I approve of the skill-based platforming. I wasn't particularly fond of the maze portion in the middle, since I couldn't figure out where to go, and it didn't help that I had to redo the same tedious path every single time I fell to my doom. I hate that these red platforms don't respawn unless I go back to kill myself, and this wall of rock randomly blocking the pathway you're supposed to take is so annoying. I eventually had to cave in and ask for help about where to go, and it turns out there's a crevice I could ascend. I hate to be cheating like that, but I was just relieved to finally escape the maze and reach a new checkpoint. This final mountain climb might actually be the toughest platforming challenge I've ever done, and it made me so angry. You know you're in for a platforming doozy when you need to sandwich in between a crevice that moves up and down, and that's not even the hard part. It pretty much gets progressively tougher as you're nearing the top, expecting you to do pinpoint precision jumping and landing on tiny platforms, some of which move, and I was falling so many times by the very end trying to get enough height so I could sandwich in between these final two crevices. What an absolute nightmare this level was, taking me more than 3 hours to do, and causing me great anxiety. Still, I love that it's in the game, and discovering it in such an awesome way made it worthwhile. There's not much bad I can say about Rayman 3 Havoc Reignited. Sure, there are some inevitable glitches, such as walls disappearing and music stopping. I experienced an incredibly annoying one that would reset my settings for brightness, sound, and field of view to 0 every time I died, but that fortunately got alleviated by deleting the save file, which didn't reset my progress, by the way. Marek himself and others helped me figure that out in his Discord server, so go there if you're also experiencing issues. I also had a very frustrating time with the secret level, like I said, but it is meant to be extremely challenging, and it's not part of the main campaign, so to speak. Honestly, I think my biggest gripe with this remake is its name. Havoc Reignited just sounds weird, especially since Spyro already used Reignited in its remake title, and it fit a lot better there. It took me a bit to think of a good alternative, but then I found the perfect one. Who's the villain in Rayman 3? Andre. Okay, who's the final boss of Rayman 3? Also technically Andre? What I'm trying to say is that Reflux is a character that exists. So what if it was called Rayman 3 Refluxed instead? Or Havoc Refluxed, or Hoodlum Refluxed, or even Hoodlum Havoc Refluxed if you want to go the extra mile. Maybe it's not the most tasteful title, but it does make a lot of sense, as you might have consumed Rayman 3 back in the day, and now it's come back to bother you 22 years later. Refluxed also sounds like Deluxe, which this edition of Rayman 3 is if you ask me. As much as I love the first level in that game, Havoc Reignited is definitely the ideal way of experiencing the Great Fairy Council, at least if you can avoid any of the issues I faced. From the sounds of it, Marek won't continue developing this demo into the full game, which is unfortunate, but also completely understandable, considering this is a non-profit fan game that would probably take over a decade to complete. That said, he is going to release the game assets so that someone else can continue his work if they so wish, whether it be in the form of a full Rayman 3 remake or a different game entirely. Maybe this can act as a base for another Rayman 4 attempt. I'm so excited by the possibilities. Even though Havoc Reignited only covers a single level, this is easily my favorite fan game to date, and it's certainly one of the better ones I've played. We seem to be in a fan game renaissance at the moment, with the likes of all these promising Rayman fan games, Portal Revolution, the VR Ratchet & Clank level remakes, and the Four Seasons Avatar game that's being made in Media Molecule streams. That underrated game even has an impressive Super Mario Galaxy sequel now called Heart of the Stars. I seriously can't believe how good that dream is. It seems this emphasis on fan games will even make one of my biggest gaming wishes come true. I have said before that along with Sly 5, Rayman 4 is the sequel I want the most, and at the moment it seems a lot more likely for Rayman to get that treatment, regardless of whether it's made by Rayman fans or Ubisoft themselves. Ubisoft surprisingly showed up at the end of Rayman Alive, finally paying tribute to the fans and teasing an upcoming Rayman game. Given what Ubisoft has become over the past decade, I don't put too much trust into them and their ability to create a faithful sequel to one of my favorite franchises, but at least this is a step in the right direction. If anything, their appearance in this event should mean that they won't take down these fan games, which is really all you can ask for from such a notorious company. It is their inaction that has caused all these fan games to spawn into existence, so they might as well comply. Anything else would seem cruel at this point. Even if Ubisoft don't make Rayman 4, or if they make it and it turns out badly, then at least there are some fan-made alternatives to choose between, which is a wonderful safety net to have. I would like to end this video by thanking all the Rayman fans for sustaining the franchise, whether by making a game, creating art, or just showing support for our favorite limbless aubergine. Even though I'm a bit late to the party, I would also like to wish Rayman a happy 30th birthday. I'm sorry Rayman, I honestly thought you were dead. But I'm so glad to see that you are very much still alive. I'm Arcadon, and hopefully, you'll see me next time!